retirement or death, getting out of the business. We have never had a provisional complain about the fee. And I totally understand that there is no direct authority in the code, but let me point you to some authority that as an attorney, I would argue before any court of law and before you today. The Alabama Electrical Contractors Act, the definitions are a declaration of purpose is found at 3436-2. This act is for the purpose of safeguarding homeowners and other property owners and tenants against faulty, inadequate, inefficient, or unsafe electrical installations, and to protect the life, health, and property of homeowners, other property owners, and tenants in the state of Alabama. Ladies and gentlemen, I tell you right now, that doesn't exempt any part of Alabama. We have to make sure that every Alabama citizen is safe, not just some. No part of this chapter exempts any part of the state of Alabama. But in order to regulate these people that are in these pockets of localities, we must issue them a license so we have jurisdiction over them. If we don't have jurisdiction and they don't have some sort of license from us, then they're out of business. It's a cease and desist. It's put your screwdriver down, you're gone. And honestly, and this was back in 2011, and I had just come on as board attorney then. I really didn't have a lot of the background then. But it was the boards, and you know boards change every year, but at that point, the board said, we can't do that to these people. So many of them could point to people that worked for them that could wire a house better than anybody they'd ever seen. But the poor soul could not pass a written examination. And I don't know if any of y'all have ever suffered from that or know somebody like that. It was just the better of two consequences. Keep people working, but also keep us involved so we can make sure that the wiring is adequate. 75% of injury from fire is a result of electrical malfunction or an unskilled person attempting to work with electricity, and that's according to the National Fire Protection Association. Y'all, electricity is dangerous. If you hire an unskilled plumber, you're going to have a mess to clean up. If you hire an unskilled electrician, you may have a funeral or several to plan. It's nothing to be left to the people that don't know what they're doing. And that's where the board comes in, is to make sure that when we get complaints about these people, we work those complaints. We talk to both sides. We talk to the complainant. Our investigator goes and visits face-to-face, if at all possible, and meets with the respondent. We ask the respondent to give us a written reply and send us documents. Tell us your side of the story. We're not against not licensing people. We just want them to do it right. This day, we've come so far since 2011. We have such home technology advancements, it blows my mind, and I'm not technical. We have electric vehicles coming, y'all. We have solar. The world is blowing up.
If we could limit our conversation to this right here,
Yes,
I'd
ma'am.
greatly appreciate it.
Yes,
Have you
ma'am.
concluded your remarks so we can get to the questions, or do you have another point to make?
This is what I want to say. I've got one more point, Ms. Wilcox. Thank you. Alabama Code 34364C states that the board may adopt rules and regulations to carry out this chapter. Administrative rules are broadly interpreted, and boards are given the wide authority to carry out the mandates of the statute in their rules. And I would argue here today that that's what we did. We're protecting the state of Alabama, and we have a rule for provisional. If you want us to modify that, I am certainly open to your direction and ideas. Do you have any questions, ma'am?
All righty. Representative Simpson, you have the floor.
Since we're going on dialogues, I want to go on a dialogue here, and this is my problem with what we have, and this is why I don't trust you.
You don't trust me, sir?
No, you asked earlier if I trusted you, and I said no, I don't, and this is why I don't. This board has receipts as of the 2022 fiscal year of $825,880. Of that expenditure, $420,000 goes to Smith Warren, and you have a contract not to exceed $110,000.
Yes,
So
sir.
we're talking professional services about $530,000, which is almost over half of what this board goes to.
Sir, I can't speak
I'm
to
finished.
any...
I let you talk. This is my turn to talk. You know statutorily, and you have known since 2012, that statutorily the board did not have the legal authority for the $75 fee. Have known it. And you've talked about the legislation, and we've gone through the legislation that you've tried to pass and the reasons that has not passed. I'm not here to talk about the reasons that has not passed. You have known you do not have the statutory authority to do this, yet still, after being brought out in 2018 at the 2018 Sunset Committee, where we've said this is a significant issue, you do not have the authority to do this. As you stand here today, you are still offering a fee and taking a fee from contractors, from electrical contractors, that you have no statutory authority to do, and over half of the money that this board receives goes to professional services for you and Mr. Warren. So yeah, that's my concern with what we have here, because you have the hard everyday worker that has to get this requirement to get this fee to go through, and their fees are just going to administrative costs and going to these outrageous fees of $35,000 a month plus a $10,000 a month for legal services through there. So our responsibility is to look out for not only the law that is clearly not being followed in this case, but also the constituents and the members of the little people that live in the state of Alabama, to make sure there's not some rogue board charging a rogue fee that they don't have authority for, that the board and the administration for the board puts into their pocket.
Thank you, sir. Do I have any board members that would like to address?
Let's hold on just a second if we could. I wasn't here.
Mr. Barfoot, Senator, I can't speak to any other fees but my own.
Right.
I have nothing to do with what the board votes to expend in fees.
Give me just a second. I'd like to be either myself or the co-chair call somebody up and give them an opportunity. But any other questions along the lines, and I apologize, I had to go let them know they're on the floor. So back now, any other questions or comments along the lines of what Representative Simpson was asking? If not, if anybody in the audience wants to address that, give an explanation, be glad to hear from them.
We will suspend that fee effective immediately. We will call an emergency meeting of the board and suspend that fee immediately.
Let me, and I apologize again. Maybe I went over this, but what if it's easy enough to suspend the fee now? Why has that not been done prior to, with an acknowledgement that it's unlawful?
Legal representation, when we were discussing this, because of the number of complaints and investigations that are performed for provisional licensees, and at the last sunset when we were talking about this, and Senator Coleman Madison was present and was aware of the conversation, and to answer your question, no one has said stop. We've tried to correct it legislatively, but as of today, we will take care of that right now.
Okay. I don't know where we're at in the process. Was that the first comment or question? Okay. All right. And I don't know, I apologize, Mr. Warren, I don't know whether you were going through those significant findings and where you were in that process, but to the extent you were, and if you want to continue with that, then that's certainly.
We've covered all of them. We've covered workforce, we've covered the encumbrances, and then that one was number 3.
Okay.
So we have covered those. If there are any other questions, I will volunteer any of the board chairs and the attorneys and the procurement office to entertain questions about how this is going moving forward. I know of the questions that have been raised. We are addressing those. I'm doing everything I can to give you the information, the documentation of what all I provide under my contract compared to what a standalone board and an office would expend. Once the contract is finalized, I will distribute that to all members of the committee as quickly as possible. And I know these are questions for each board. I have gotten 3 boards during the pandemic that were unexpected. I'm not out drumming up business. One executive director passed away unexpectedly. And so there's plenty of room for boards to go to other providers. If you have any specific questions, I will definitely put you in contact with those individuals about the specifics of, why they choose me as a vendor. I think they have the right to explain that as well. But we are going through a much more transparent process of exactly what those fees go for in the contracts. And so those questions are being answered through this process.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Members, questions, comments, concerns?
On workforce development, we heard an example earlier how an application fee or a testing fee had been waived, and I noticed that you also have some workforce pipeline issues as well. Have y'all, and then you've also your pass-fail rate. Does the board look at that and see how they can't recruit more people to take the test and also have people have success when taking that test? Can you tell me of their efforts, please?
Yes, ma'am. So it is a national exam. The board reviews those percentages and pass-fail rates at every meeting. There are several board members that have apprenticeship programs themselves. There are a lot of initiatives out there that they work with for getting an approved apprentice programs that they work at their companies. And so one of the things that was brought up the other day was slimlining the documentation for journeymen. We would definitely entertain, but I don't think we can waive fees statutorily unless it was in the statute to waive a fee. But we're trying to make the process and remove as many barriers to the journeyman license as possible. We have, in fact, discussed that on Monday.
And I'd appreciate it if y'all would make that a part of any report, or future reports showing where you had cut down and made the regulations less burdensome on our citizens to enter into this field.
Yes, ma'am. We will add that to the quarterly reports that we submit to the examiners and to the committee.
And I appreciate the board, their attention to this matter. Thank you so much, and I appreciate the fact that y'all review it at every meeting.
All right. Anybody else in the audience want to make a comment? Okay. Members? Yes, sir.
I apologize for I've not studied over what you had sent. You might have addressed this in this printout we got, so I apologize if I'm duplicating a question that's in your explanation here. My one question is on the encumbrances again. Just to restate, the 2021, I think the difference was, our report was a little bit off. The difference was $8,673.82. It's on page 7 of your report. I think maybe one of the numbers was off, and you explained that. But I think the difference is $86.73.82 in the first year. Yeah, right. 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 Yeah. Yeah, but the difference is the 8,600 roughly. Yeah, and 82 cents. The following year, I think the difference was 21,700. Year 3, that's not really an encumbrance. Year 3 was the amount that was from the unreserved cash balance, the transfer that's made to the general fund. And then number 4, I think it was 19,271 off. And I know we talked about, there were estimates, but to make sure I got the process down of what I expect to be, what my expectations of typical are. The encumbrances in the final year of the fiscal year are things that we have expended but not paid.
That's
correct. They're paid in the following month. The following month they're paid, and then those expenses are known. And so really they're sort of known in the last year because, we were receive an invoice that's got a due date of 15 days or whatever, 10 days and get the percentage discount, that sort of thing. So we really know what the numbers are in the final month, and then we pay them in the month after. And then there's like 3.5 months until it's sent over, like January the 15th, I think, before it's sent over to the general fund. And so for me, it seems like those numbers should be finalized within 30 days, actually. And I think I read in here that the CFO is the one that, I think the word it used was estimates the numbers in the final month. Is that
The encumbrances.
CFO? Is that your CFO or is
Yes,
that
mine.
someone?
That's mine. And so we're starting to prepare encumbrances now that are due August the 14th or 15th, one of those 2 days, to prepare for services and expenses from that date to the end of September, which is the end of the fiscal year. And then once we roll over and the state opens on October the 1st, then we enter the 13th accounting period where those reserved funds go to pay for the services and invoices that we have during that time. And so when we contact after the 13th accounting period is closed at the end of October, so we give it a little while, and then we contact the comptroller's office that helps us determine that number. And that's what Ms. Thomas and I have discussed of why is it on our end? Because I know there was a discrepancy in how much we each actually reverted one year. One was more, one was less. And so there's got to be something's missing, and we're going to find out what it is.
Yeah. Do those invoices come to you or to the comptroller's office?
They come to our office.
Okay, so you have the invoices and you know what they are, but do you record those invoices or do you just send them over to the comptroller?
No, they're recorded and entered into the system for review prior to payment at the comptroller's office.
Okay.
Things that we have to estimate are travel for investigators.
Got it.
Travel for board meetings in case we have a board meeting that's coming up or a special called meeting. We have legal services that we estimate of what those legal services will be for that 45-day period. I think that covers the estimated.
And those are in the month, year ends in September, correct?
The year in September,
Yeah.
but we have to stop and guesstimate from August, the middle of August to the end of September.
Yeah, that's the part I think I've been missing. So why do we cut off in the middle of August?
That's a question I cannot answer. That's always been, that's a state operations thing.
Okay. All right. So that's part I've been missing. Okay.
Wilcox?
I am.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Ms. Wilcox, may I add one more question? So if we don't encumber those funds, then we don't have the funds available to pay that invoice, and then that invoice has to be submitted to Board of Adjustment to be paid through that process. So that's why we have tried to narrow down that estimate as much as possible. But we're working on it. There's still got to be a better process, but yes, sir.
Yeah. The August 15th cutoff is what I was missing.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
My question is a follow-up on the schedule of fees, and I'll ask any attorney present, either your board attorney or Representative Simpson, or Senator Barfoot, pardon me.
Leave me out of that.
But Mrs. Thomas, as I understand this, these fees are actually set by administrative rule. They're not set by legislation. So the board does indeed have the power
That's
to
correct.
adjust their fees.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I thought that you were saying that I thought I heard you say they were set by statute.
Oh, no, ma'am. They're set by regulation, and so we can vote for the board to repeal that rule ASAP. They are in administrative rules.
And any other fees that they see fit to lower or waive.
Yes.
Okay.
And just historical, when the law passed in 2010, in 2011, when we were proposing the fees, we reduced the $200 licensing fee for electrical contractor to $150. So we did lower that, knowing that our numbers would increase with receiving applicants for licensing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. So, any of these boards, agencies that are subject to sunset, are they also subject to legislative council review for regulations? Do
Yes.
y'all? Okay. All right. Members, questions, comments, concerns? Again, give an opportunity for anybody in the audience who wants to be heard by the committee. If not, thank y'all so much for coming. One follow-up.
What's the deadline? You might have already said this, I missed it. The deadline for those RFPs for the contracts upcoming, when is that?
It has been passed and submitted to the procurement office for review. That's where it is right now.
And at that point in time is when it will be open for others, or is that already passed?
That's already passed.
All right,
And so
so-
procurement's reviewing it, and then a contract will be prepared between the procurement office and the board's attorney, and then presented to contract review. Hopefully by the September contract review committee.
Got you.
Yes,
All right.
sir.
Thanks, sir.
All right. Thank you. Nothing else? Then we stand in for a break, and we'll be back at 12:30. Thank y'all.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Here's the thing, what you want to say,